Stephanie Fisher. She asked me, I do this a lot. She's the only one that's ever asked me for the correct pronunciation of my last name. So thank you, Miss Fisher. I appreciate that. And absolutely jacked up to be here today for two reasons. Number one, Anthony Cole Training Group, about 90+% of our business is in the community bank space. So we do very well. Almost all of our business is in what you guys are doing. And secondly, probably just as not, if not more important, I'm working with the state of Michigan, the greatest state in the union. I grew up in Shepherd, which is up by Mount Pleasant. I am a CMU Chippewa, not a chip. I am a CMU Chippewa, and I might lose half my audience right here, Ms. Cox, if I just take a drink out of my U of M water mug. So I might lose half you guys right now, but we're looking forward to a great experience. And I am high interaction, so please stay close to your mute button. I love feedback. And one of the things I want to start with is I love the chat box. So let's do this. If you came on, you heard me playing a little music. So here's my question. Fire up the chat box. The very first concert you ever went to, who did you go see? Fire up the chat box. Mine was the Spinners in about the mid-70s in Munn Arena in East Lansing, Michigan. There we go. Look at Jeremy reacting to that thing. How about that, huh? So fire up the chat. New edition, Kimberly. Look at that. Sandy Winton. Oh, come on, Cody. Right there. Motley Crue. Nicole, you are an out of control and Motley Crue. Look at Jim. Look at Mellow Jim. Marshall Tucker. How can you go wrong with Marshall Tucker? Come on, Rick. Did I see Rick, you out there? Come on, give me, who'd you go see? Sean Cassidy, Ann Cox. That is absolutely delightful. Let's see what else we got going here. Tina Turner, Stephanie. Look at Tina. Look at Stephanie. Stop getting where was she? What was the venue? Stephanie, where was Tina Turner playing? And I bet she put on a fabulous show, didn't she?
Yeah, up in Charlevoix. It used to be called Castle Farms. I don't know what that's called anymore, but it's a great venue outdoors.
Oh, geez. I love Charlevoix. What a great area. So thank you, folks, for indulging me. I appreciate that. I love high interaction. So I've got something on the whiteboard. And Rick, because you've been gracious enough to open your mic a few times, this quote from Bill Ekstrom. Rick, have you ever heard of Bill Ekstrom, the author of The Coaching Effect?
I have not.
He's if you guys are into self-development, Bill Ekstrom, The Coaching Effect, what a fabulous book to read. And here's what he says, Rick: what makes you comfortable can ruin you. And he talks about the growth rings, and I'm not going to go into, he talks about stagnation and chaos and complexity and order, and it's a great way. And so when you read that, Rick, what are you thinking when what makes you comfortable can ruin you? Why does Mr. Ekstrom believe that?
Because you're not growing.
No. And he says, if we stay in order too long, we move into stagnation. And here's what the other thing, he says, what makes you uncomfortable is the only way to grow. Why is that, Rick?
It brings you outside your box, and you adapt and learn new things that can make you better.
Nothing great ever happens in our comfort zone. Nothing. Consistency and order, which are fine, but nothing great happens in the comfort zone. And so, Jody Hall, can you open up your phone line, Jody? You there, Miss Jody? Maybe not. I don't know. We'll try to maybe. What about my boy, Jeremy? Jeremy, open up your phone line, big boy. There, Jeremy. When you see this down here, discomfort equals growth. What keeps you busy during the day? I'm trying to find your name on my sheet here, Jeremy. What keeps you busy?
A lot of different things, but right now it's a lot of PPP stuff, and then also new business.
Okay, but are you a leader? Are you a producer? What do you do, Jeremy?
Producer.
Okay, very good. All right. And so here you go. As a producer, discomfort equals growth. Why does Mr. Ekstrom believe that? Why do we have to be in discomfort before we can grow?
Well, I think it gets back to what you were saying before. I mean, nothing new comes from sitting in the same spot.
Yeah.
And if you're going to move to a different place, you're going to be uncomfortable at first.
Yep. And so because I'm looking at my list, most of us on this call are in leadership position. And what Bill Ekstrom talks about is, how can I take my people from order to complexity? And in complexity is when we're uncertain of the results. And so there's going to be a fair amount of failure. And if anybody here is a NASCAR fan, there's a saying in NASCAR: if you ain't rubbing, you ain't racing. That means if you're not in the middle of it, mixing it up with the other drivers, you're probably not going to have a chance to win. And we take that at Anthony Cole Training and say, if you're not failing, you're not getting better. Because if you're not failing, you're not trying anything new. And so through the course of the rest of this session today, I'm going to show you some things that we bring to the community banks that we work with. We work with both leaders and producers, and we got to make sure that they are absolutely being in a state of discomfort, because if we don't do this stuff, we are never going to grow. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. Ooh, there's a picture of Screaming Ted. That'll get your attention. Hey, Rick, if you see the 5 keys to coaching, give me a thumbs up, would you please? Got a thumbs up on that, big boy? There we go. Thank you. All right, so this is going to be the topic for today, because again, I looked through my list. Most of us are in a leadership position, and so let's get the chat box fired up again. If I take you back and I ask you, in your whether it was in high school, college, on the athletic field, in the arts, teaching, business world, I want you to write down the name of a person that comes to mind when you think of a great coach, a great leader, a great mentor. Who is it that comes to mind when you think of that? Who was that person that comes to mind that absolutely was a tremendous impact? Like, here we go, Ann Cox. Thank you very much. I was going to call on you. Hey, Ann, can you open up your phone line, Ann? Try to find. There we go. So Mr. Bongart, why was he so good, Ann? What distinguished him in your mind?
It was earlier in my career, but he was very thoughtful when he spoke, and I tend not to be so thoughtful. I don't have much of a filter, so I found him to be a good model for me to try and emulate.
Okay. All right. So very thoughtful. All right. Very good. Thank you very much. Who else willing to put a name in there as somebody that really sticks out to you? And if you care to open up your phone, I would love to hear who that person was and why they resonated with you. Kimberly, Sandy, Jenna, Cody, anybody out there that has a person that comes to mind and why they resonated with you? Looks like we're a little shy. What about Cindy? Is Cindy out there? Cindy, can you open up your phone line? And who comes to mind, Cindy, when you think of a great leader, a great mentor, a great teacher? All right, having a little trouble with some of the microphones, it sounds like. But here's what I'm thinking.
I'll throw out Warren Buffett for me.
I'm sorry. Say again, please.
Warren Buffett.
How come? What? That's an interesting take on that, Rick. How come? Thank you, Cindy. I appreciate that.
He always stays positive during tough times. He's always transparent. His communications is always open.
Okay. All right. And so communication, open, thoughtful. Here's the other thing that I say again.
And positive. He stays positive even during bad time. Hard times.
Yep. And here's what I'm guessing is all those attributes I just heard. My guess is they weren't afraid to challenge you a little bit. They weren't afraid to push you a little bit because they knew something was in the tank. And here's the mark of a great coach. This is what great coaching is the ability to pull something out of you can't pull out of yourself. That's a great coach. The ability to pull something out of you that you can't pull out of yourself. And so when I'm working with sales leaders across the country and they have their teams, and the first question they ask me is, Jack, How can I get more out of my people? How can I get more out of my team? And I'm thinking, God, are they like a dish rag? You're trying to squeeze an extra drop out. So here's my first question. How much are you putting into them? If you want to get a little bit more out, you have to put a little bit more in. It's almost like having an account at your financial institution. You can't take out more than you put in. So if you're continually making deposits into their emotional bank account, if you continue to put deposits into why they should get a little bit better, then there's more in the tank, and you as a great coach can then pull that out. So again, let's get the chat box fired up. Whenever there's studies done, and I'm going to get my broadest brush out and paint this picture, so please don't take offense. For the most part, people don't leave companies or institutions, people leave leaders. They don't leave companies or institutions, they leave leaders. And so fire up the chat box. There's always surveys, and these 2 or 3 things always seem to resonate and bubble to the surface. Why do people look at Kimberly Nauer? Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you. Generous with their time. That is absolutely phenomenal. So we're going to talk about that a little bit, Kimberly. Thanks for putting that in there. So fire up the chat box. When they do studies and people leave, there's generally a couple of reasons of why people leave leaders, why people leave institutions, why they change job. Fire up the chat box. What do we find most of the time? These 2 or 3 things usually happen. Don't be shy in the chat box. There we go. There we go, Sherry. Thank you. Acknowledgement and respect, Nicole. Thank you. Very well done. Let's get a couple more in there. There we go, Cindy. There we go. There we go. And that's one of them, man. That usually is a little bit lower, but you're right. That can be part of it. I mean, I do what I do because I can put meals on my table, right? I don't do it because I have nothing else to do, but appreciation, acknowledgement, not challenge. For the most part, these are the things that we see, is that they don't think they're making a contribution and they don't think their contributions matter. And so as great coaches, and I heard what everybody said, Jeremy and Rick and everybody else that talked about it, is great people because they are willing to invest. And so we're going to talk about 5 keys to coaching in a very high tech and remote environment. So let's face it, my goodness, in a couple more weeks, we will have been in the throes of this COVID mess for about a year now. And it's obviously a very challenging marketplace for business. They're fragmented in their thinking. And so I know I have some branch managers that are leading probably an FSR or a teller or whatever. So they're not really going out much. But Jeremy, in normal circumstances, Jeremy, would you be going out and making calls for opportunities for the bank you represent, Jeremy?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, you'd be going out, you'd be interacting and finding opportunities and making appointments and doing those type of things, right?
Yeah, all of it. Most of that has now moved to Teams calls, telephone.
Yep.
That kind of thing.
Yep. And probably what you're hearing, Jeremy, is you're doing these things is that people are busy, COVID and layoffs and all the PPP, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And so even if you're leading an FSR or a teller or whatever name, your universal bankers, whatever you call them, let's face it, branch traffic in normal times was decreasing year over year. And let's face it, in this world, it took a plunge off a cliff. Limited opportunity to interact. And I love working at banks because I stand behind a teller line. It just amazes me how much stuff your teller knows about the people that walk in the door. There's nobody that knows more people that are your customers and knows more about them. But so here we go. We've changed that. Limited branch access, mostly drive-through. Electronic has taken over. And so those connections are starting to fall apart. And so as we're coaching our people, and I had one of my banks up in Minnesota coined this phrase. We have to get away from fast food banking. And so when you hear that, fire up the chat box. What's that mean to you? I love that quote. We need to get away from fast food banking. So what does that, when you hear that, what resonates with you? What does that mean to you? We have to get away from the fast food banking world. Let's see who comes up with the responses there. And if anybody wants to open their phone line and chime in, there we go, Stephen Smith. Outstandings. Customers are a number. Everyone is in a hurry. Oh my gosh. Oh my God. It's convenient, but not very healthy. Well played, young lady. No, there we go, Sherry. Need to dig deeper with customers, and great answer. Need to bring value. And so fast food, you think about going into a fast food restaurant and you walk up to the front of the line and I'll take a number 2 biggie size the fries and give me a Diet Coke. And then they get that and they walk out. And so we have to get away from transactional. But here's the thing I know. Whenever we work with banks, and we work commercial, we work retail, we work investment, we work insurance, all those things. And here's the thing that I know. If I'm working with a retail branch, with a retail operation, I am not going to turn them into red meat eating, commission-based sales animals. They don't want to do that. If they wanted to do that, guess what they'd do? They'd go sell cars. Now, that's not a shot at any industry. They want to be bankers. And so here are the 3 things. If you choose to, let me put these in the chat box. When I coach and when we're coaching, because people, thanks to our friends that have the Stagecoach as their logo, a couple of years ago, putting a very much a disparaging situation on the banking world because of some of the unsavory things they did. The word sells freaks people out. And so as you're coaching your people, as you're having your pre-meetings, your one-on-one coaching, here's the thing I want them to be thinking about. Every time I'm having an interaction, whether that's through the drive-through, somebody calls me up on the phone, or if you have a branch operation, if Ann Cox walks into my pod or walks to my teller line, the first thing I'm thinking, I wonder how I can be helpful to her today. How can I be helpful? The second thing is, you want to help your people be curious. How curious, and how can curiosity? So as you're processing, Ann says, can you make this deposit? Can you transfer this money? Can you give me some cash back? I'm looking through that profile and I'll see 2 or 3 things that makes me go, I wonder if I'm going to be helpful, can I be curious enough? And then here's the last one. It's the most challenging thing for most FSRs and tellers to have. It's that cowardly lion, a little bit of courage. Can I have the courage? I see Ann walk in and I see $750 going to First State Mortgage. All right, I'm going to be helpful. I'm going to be curious and I'm going to think, and I'm going to have the courage. Hey, Ann, this may be none of my business, but I see you have this amount going out each month. And I'm wondering, when's the last time from our bank sat down and had a conversation with you? And that's already, here's the last thing I want your people to know. Folks, it's just a conversation. It's all it is. If I'm trying to be helpful to Jeremy, if I'm trying to be helpful to Cody and she says not interested, that's okay, because I was simply trying to be helpful. And so we know it's a challenging marketplace. People are fractured and frayed, and the kids are not in school, they're home, they're trying to get all this stuff done, the spouse is home, and there's all kinds of chaos still going on. So even though it's a challenging marketplace, I've still got to work in that conversation because I want to get away from fast food banking. I want to get into relationship deepening conversations, and I can only do that if I'm being helpful, if I want to be curious, if I can develop a high sense of curiosity, and if I can have the courage to do well. And so right here, Everybody that is in a leadership position, here's what we believe: there's no higher calling. Nothing you can do that would be more valuable to your financial institution is if you became an absolutely great coach. If we put coaching at the top of the list and filter everything in, we're going to have a chance to develop our team. Now, I was talking to one of my banks down in Eagle Lake, Texas, and if anybody can tell me where Eagle Lake, Texas is, I'll buy you the adult beverage of your choosing. Eagle Lake, Texas is a little bit north and west of Houston. And they were talking about they're doing the split shifts. Half the team is home and half the team is in the branch operation. So what do we do? How are we reaching out and having conversations, and what are we doing? And right now, when I work with the people I work with, I try to bring, how can we bring some connectivity to the team? How can we bring the team together? And so sometimes the best coaching you can do has nothing to do with banking. Let me say that again. Sometimes the best coaching you can do has nothing to do, where we can do things to bring some esprit de corps. All right. What's your, like I did, I asked, what was the first concert you ever went to? All right. That spurred a lot of reaction on the chat box. All right. What's your favorite recipe? Okay. What's the tradition? One of the traditions you have during birthdays, and anything at all that kind of brings the group together. And if you're a fan of Simon Sinek, he talks about the difference between optimism and positivity. The difference between optimism and positivity. Positivity is you're running around, you're jumping up and down, you're being the cheerleader. All right. That works a little bit. Optimism is simply this: understanding and dealing with the harsh reality of our current situation. And the harsh reality of our current situation is it ain't good. And we don't know when it's going to get better. But I do know this: it will get better. And so not so much banking stuff, creating relationships, developing people where they can do a little bit more together. And that can be done either face-to-face, via Zoom, or via the phone call. And so here's what, again, we talked about. This is why this is some of the things we're finding is that what's important to your people. Number one, their work matters. They are making difference. And here's the big thing: we can work collectively as a team. As long as I know other people are willing to dive in and do the things that I'm doing, then I'm willing to hang in and go through this crappy situation a little bit more. And so one of the things that when we're in these situations, because of the current economic, businesses are fragmented, people are laying people off, they got to do more with less, and there's fragmentation at home. And I call this a case of the terrible twos. And if you either have been a child or have children, all right, that should pretty much be everybody on this call. Either been a child or have children, you went through or you've seen the terrible twos. And the terrible twos are simply this: they just like, oh my gosh, who is this child and where's my kid? They are absolutely out of their mind right now. And so not only that's the terrible twos with our kids, but let me talk about, oops. This is something you're dealing with. Fire up the chat box. What are the terrible twos you're dealing with? Not the TWO, but the TOO. What's the terrible twos that your people and you are dealing with that cause a little frustration, a little fragmentation? Give me some of the terrible twos that you might be experiencing out there. What are the terrible twos we're seeing and hearing? There we go. There we go, Cindy. It's too hard to try to break old habits. There we go. Give me a couple more. Well done, Cindy. I love that last name, by the way. I wish I could hear the pronunciation. Aqua Viva, I think it is. That is an absolutely fabulous name. It's too hard to break Old habit. There we go. I nailed it. Yay. How about that for the dumb farm boy from Shepherd, Michigan? He did all right there. So we get the terrible twos. They're too busy. They're too consumed. They're too happy with their current banking relationship as I don't have a opportunity. And so if you were a fan of the first Karate Kid movie, and the sensei in the championship fight, he tells Johnny, sweep the leg. And if we're going to be a good leader, we got to help our people sweep the leg on some of this head trash. Oh, they're too busy. They won't want to have this conversation. So they walk in, fast food bank, and do the transaction, and they walk out. They're on the phone. They're too busy for me to break into a conversation with them. And so this is what we have to help them get through. And Jeremy, when you're out making your sales calls, you'll be thinking, because your people, your customers will tell you, Jeremy, I'm too busy. Jeremy, why don't you call me back in 6 months? Jeremy, I got too many things going on. And we can sweep the leg by simply saying this, hey, I get it, Jack. If we weren't in COVID, if you weren't consumed by PPP and you were trying to grow your business, what would you want to talk about? Because now that just allowed me to put a little bit of ammunition in my or a little arrow in my quiver, so that next time I talk to him, we can have that conversation. So we're going to sweep the leg on these things that's getting in their way. We got to help them get beyond this, because guess what? Your customers still want to know. I think it's like 80% They did I forget it was customer satisfaction. They work with banks. And 80% of customers still want their financial institution to talk to them about products and services. But yet we don't do it. How come your frontline FSRs, let's get that chat box fired up again. Why don't your frontline FSRs, why don't your tellers engage in those conversations? What's getting in their way? Fire up that chat box. Let's get a few more people going on this thing. Look at these people. I see somebody chatting or sort of typing away. Why don't our people have those? There we go, Ann Cox. My goodness, there we go. Lack of courage, Sandy. Number 3, right? We want to have them be helpful, curious, and then have that high dose of, there we go, Jody Teffers. I don't want to be asked a question and I may not have an answer for. And so again, this is where great coaching comes into play. All right. I used to be a high school teacher. I was coaching football and baseball, and I could easily say, hey, Joey, you know what? You need to run faster. Hey, Timmy, you need to jump higher. And they're going, hey, Captain Obvious, guess what? If I could, I would. Why don't you coach me on how to do that? And so here's where the most important thing, and this will send a shiver up most people's spine when I put this in there, but there is nothing better you can do with your team. Right there, baby. It's in the chat box. Role play. And again, everything you said that what you just chatted of why they won't interact with a customer is why they don't like to role play. Lack of courage, feeling fear, don't have enough knowledge. And so what we have to tell our people, coach them on, is don't worry about being product aficionados, be question aficionados. I never get in trouble as long as I'm asking questions. And so if Ann Cox said, hey, Jack, can you tell me a little bit more about your 401k program or your home equity program? And say, hey, that's a great question, Ann. What specifically are you looking for? What are you trying to accomplish? And you know what, Ann, I've got an expert in Stephanie Fisher. She's an absolute expert. Here's what too many people say. Well, I don't know too much about that. We can't do that because that does not instill any confidence in your team. Here's the better answer. I've got an expert. She is absolutely phenomenal at home equity. She is the best at IRAs. I'd like to be able to put you in touch with her, but asking those couple of questions, helpfulness, curiosity, courage. What specifically are you looking for? What are you trying to accomplish? What aren't you getting now that you would like to get? And that is all we have to do. So, got a little bit off track here. Stephanie's probably ready to reach through this screen and punch me right in the nose. Let me try to get back on. And so here we go. The top 10 reasons why leaders aren't more effective. And so as you look at this, there's one or two that I see. All these are important, but there's one or two that keep people from being great coaches. There's no way you can be wrong on this. As you look through this list of 1 through 10, which one do you think, which one maybe you're challenged with, or which one do you think that we find most bank leaders, branch managers, regional managers, whatever they may be, they might struggle with this? Give me as you look through this list of 1 through 10, give me some numbers that you think, this is probably where most sales coaches are challenged. Not that you're bad at this. Please don't hear me say that. Not that you're bad at it. Maybe you're challenged by it. What do you think that is? Give me some answers there. What do you think what number, which one resonates with you? Number 1, Jim Young. How about that? How about that? That is probably, there's no coincidence. I mean, we don't rank these things. There we go, Cindy. They don't consistently coach and debrief. Sandy, thank you very much. All right. It just happens to be number 1 on this list. All right. But that's one of the main ones. And let me ask you this. Why don't they? What gets in the way? They're not doing it consistently. Great answers so far. I love this chat box. Stephanie, you're right. This is a sharp group. They're pretty sharp. Why don't they do it more consistently? You're right. It's number 1 on the hit parade. They don't do it consistently. Why don't they do it? Gotta keep track of my time here. Oh, perfect. Anybody want to open the phone line? There we go. There we go. Thank you, Cindy. Jim Young. There we go. Family Feud. Good answer. Good answer. Well done, J-Dub. The terrible twos. I'm too busy. I'm too this. I'm too that. And yes. So number 1 of the hit parade, it keeps people from being good coaches. Number 1, they don't have enough time. And let's face it, there's nobody on your team that's lazy. There's nobody on your team that's bored. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of people juggling a lot of balls, right, Rick? And so we have to help them create some bandwidth. And I was working with up in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, one of my bankers up there. She's taking on new responsibilities. So I got to sit down with Lisa, and we got to create bandwidth. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how to do that here in a few moments. But yes, number 1, keeping them from being great is this right here. And number 2 is this right here, number 3. This is the number 1 reason that keeps people from being great coaches. When I'm coaching somebody, it's like I'm on a sales call. If I'm on a sales call, if I'm talking too much, I'm not going to have an opportunity. If I'm coaching, here's the thought I want you to keep resonating in your head. As I'm coaching Rick, as I'm coaching Jeremy, as I'm coaching Jim, I'm thinking this: am I asking questions or am I making statements? Keep that in mind. Am I making statements or am I asking questions? And if we make statements on coaching, we're losing. If we ask questions when we're coaching, we're leading them to the aha moment. We're leading them to the moment of self-discovery. So if I sit down with Jim Young and I say, hey, Jim, whatever it might be, your referrals, your cross-selling, whatever it is you guys happen to measure. And I say, Jim, you're not doing this very well. You need to do this, this, and this. And Jim takes his stuff and he leaves my office and said, there's no way in the world this is going to work. This is just not going to happen. But he took my stuff because I was the boss and I told him what to do. If I say, Jim, I mean, it looks like maybe there's some things going on that I may not be aware of. but there's a reason, there's something going on that you're not doing this activity. I'm wondering what's going on. And then here's where we have to be good. We have to have them come up with their plan. Because too many times, Cindy, too many times people want to hand us their monkey. They want us to deal with their problem. And we got to be thinking this, not my monkey, not my zoo. I'm not going to take their monkey. I'm going to make them think. I'm going to challenge them a little bit. I'm going to make them a little bit uncomfortable because that's where growth occurs. I'm going to make them struggle a little bit. So if they say, well, geez, Jack, I don't know what to do. Oh, okay, let's come up with an idea. What do you think? Give me a couple ideas. I don't care how crazy it sounds. What might you do here? And so when we do this, if we can get these two things, coaching on debriefing and coaching on a consistent basis, and then they're not asking enough questions. If we can get better at those two things, your team is going to get better. You're going to retain people because they're feeling valued, and you're going to have a lot better lot better success in moving the team forward. And so as we look at this thing, here's the other thing. We have a customer down in a CEO down in Atlanta. And I said, do you ever
Oh, did we lose Jack?
Yeah.
Where did he
looks
go?
like it.
All right. Okay, if everybody wants to grab some coffee, let me figure out why his connection dropped.
Hopefully he's not still in the middle of that story.
being successful? Until then, nothing's going to happen. And so when we're coaching, whether it's face-to-face, whether it's remotely, let me give you, this verbiage. If you guys would get comfortable with this verbiage, because we're trying to change behaviors, and I don't want to do anything that would seem derogatory, but when we work with our team, it's a lot like working with our kids. And we work with our kids, we're trying to get them to change behaviors and own the outcome they've created. And so I'm going to put something on the chat box here real quick. There we go. If you folks, if you can get this, if you choose to write this down, if you guys will embrace this verbiage, I am all about changing people's behaviors. All right. And there's only one way I can change a behavior: if they own the outcome they've created. And so if I'm sitting down with Susie and I'm asking Susie about, hey, we want you to do, you're not doing these things. These are the things we're expecting, whatever it is. And she comes up with an excuse. We get in the case of the terrible twos. I'm too busy. We got too many things going on. They're too, whatever it is. Here's what they're going to hear from me. Hey, Susie, if I took that reason off the table, what would you have done different? Hey, Joe, if I eliminated that excuse, I'm curious, what would you have done different? And the key word on there being is, what would you do differently? And then what you want to do, and here's the hardest thing for most leaders, is letting silence be your friend. Hey, Charlie, I'm wondering if we didn't allow that reason to occur, if we took that off the table, what would you have done different? And then what you want to do is sit there and shut the front door and let them talk. If they come up with another excuse, you're going to be like a jukebox. They're going to play B17 and they're going to hear this come out of your mouth. Because here's what's going to happen eventually. They're going to pass the intelligence test. They're going to know that Cindy's not taking any more excuses. They're going to know that Rick is not taking any more excuses. We're going to drive excuses out of your world. And until you hear one word, until you hear the word I didn't, I should have, I will. When you hear I, they're owning the outcome they've created, and then they're going to put together the plan to make it and make sure it doesn't happen again. What are you going to do in the future to make sure that doesn't happen? And so when we talk about coaching, it's sitting down and having time on your schedule. But we talked about this. Why don't coaches coach more often? They haven't got the bandwidth. Here's a couple of exercises that if you are the one leading your team, or if you're leading leaders, little self-evaluation. Write down the things that in your current position, in your current responsibilities, only you can do. Make that column. Only you can do it. And that generally lands on discipline, evaluations, giving out merit increases, whatever it may be. But what you're going to find, there's only about maybe 3 or 4 that only you can do and nobody else can do. And then the next column is, what are all the other things that you do in your current responsibilities? So you got 2 columns, only you can do it, all the other things. And then in that second column, what are you doing that somebody else could? It may take some coaching. It'll take some time investment. But in the long run, you have just developed your staff. You have created bandwidth for you. And now you can take on other responsibilities. So coaching should be on that first list. All right. There's some other people that can do it, but you have to make sure that you're coaching your team. And so let me give you another example. Make sure I'm getting close to okay, good. We're right on schedule with my little snafu. The other thing we talk about is creating and understanding your big rock items. If I had a container, and I wanted you to maximize the capacity of that container, and I gave you a pile of big rocks, a pile of little rocks, of sand and water, and I want you to maximize the capacity of that container, fire up the chat box. What do you put in there first? What goes into the container first if you're going to maximize capacity? Big rocks, little rocks, sand, or water? Which one goes in first? Fire up the chat box. There we go, Sherry. Sherry, how come we put the big rocks in first? Great answer. Great answer. There we go. And so now the concept, here's what I'm looking at you to do. In your current responsibilities, for you to be the most effective leader, no matter what it is, okay? What's your big rock item? 2 or 3 big rock items, whether it's coaching, whether it's if you need to go out and derive opportunities for your branch operation, whatever it is. What do I need to do on a consistent basis to put my bank in a position to win? Got to identify my big rocks, because Sherry's spot on. And here's what you need to do. Here's the tough part. Go to your calendar, put it on the calendar as a reoccurring event. And give me 6 weeks. Give me 6 weeks. to put that big rock item, and here's what I need you to do. Guard it with great zeal and passion. I've got Tuesdays at 10 o'clock is my coaching time. And somebody calls up and says, Jack, can we meet at Tuesday at 10 o'clock? And I say, I'm sorry, I have an appointment on that day. I can meet you at 11, or I can meet you on Wednesday. If you will put this on your calendar and keep it as a recurring event, I promise you folks, you'll become better at what you do. Big rock item, just like Sherry said, put the big rock on the calendar and everything else gets scheduled around it. And we call it big rocks because they're tough to move. They shouldn't be easily moved. And so here's the questions. Got about a couple minutes. I'm going to turn it back over to Stephanie. If you have that big rock item on your calendar and somebody's going to try to make an interruption to that, here are the 3 questions I want you to ask yourself. If I don't take this interruption right now, number 1, will somebody die? If I don't take this interruption right now, will I lose a customer? If I don't take this interruption right now, will I lose my job? Will somebody die? No. Will I lose a customer? No. Will I lose my job? No. Then that gets rescheduled. That gets set aside. I'm not going to budge on the big rock items. And so hopefully you folks have heard some things. I'd love to have you. I'm going to switch gears just a little bit before I bring Stephanie in to wrap up, but maybe you've grabbed 1 or 2 nuggets. Here's what studies prove. If we don't apply something new within 24 hours, the probability of us doing it falls off the cliff. So I'm wondering, fire up the chat box. Based on a nugget you've heard today, what are you going to do to become a better leader for your branch operation or your bank? What are you going to do? What have you grasped? I'm going to shift gears just a little bit because I want to make sure you guys are aware of something we're doing for the Michigan Bankers Association. But as we fire up the chat box, something you might have heard, and maybe you can write nothing, Jack. You were a waste of time. I hope that's not the case, but that might be an answer. All right. Let me do one thing here as we look for the Stephanie, can you see what you can't fix what you can't see? Can you give me a thumbs up if you see that?
Mhm.
Perfect. All right. Here's an offer that we want to make to the Michigan Banker Association attendees today. We love banks. We try to do there we go, creating consistency. Have the courage and schedule my coaching time. Look at these guys. Look at these guys. Stephanie, you were right. This is a fun, get rid of my terrible 2s, Cindy. Outstanding. Hey, one of the things that we know that get in people's way from having more success, we know we can't fix what we can't see. Very quick. This isn't an Anthony Cole training commercial, but this is the tool we want to put in your hands. And this is what we call the 21 core competencies. We can do an assessment of your team and give you this type of data as it pertains to them and their ability to hunt, create relationships, what's their desire, commitment, all these things. We can compare you to all these salespeople at top 10%, bottom 10%, all banks. We can tell you what your team looks like. Here's the thing, no cost, no obligation. To show our appreciation for the Michigan Bankers Association, we want to make this offer to you, no cost, no obligation. We will show you exactly what's getting in your team's way from having better and more engaging conversations. So if you choose to do this, the one thing we need at least 3 people to take the assessment. And if this is something of interest to you, let me know. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'll come back real quick to my share screen there. Here we go. One more time. And with that, Miss Stephanie, I'm going to make sure they have. Sorry, I didn't get all this stuff. Hopefully you guys picked up a nugget or 2. I'll be more than happy to circle back and have this. So there's my contact information. That's my cell phone. Don't hold this against me. Yes, I lived in Satan's lair known as Columbus, Ohio. Don't hold that against me. All right. That is Satan's lair, sulfur, and all this terrible things happened down there. I was like Paul being sent into the sinners. So I had to try to save people, but living in Northeast Indianapolis now, but Michigan is special to me. And if there's anything I can do, I won't charge you. It won't cost you a dime. We love the Michigan Bankers Association. So call me if I can help. And with that, Ms. Fisher, why don't you put a bow on this situation and get these back into their third.
Thanks, Jack. Well, we certainly look forward to welcoming you back in person. Hopefully sooner rather than later, but we'd love to have your smiling face in our training room for us. But so I just want to confirm if they want to take you up on that. Should they reach out to you?
Yes, just
Okay.
send me an email, call me, either one, and I'll send you the information for the link. And all you have to do, there's no cost. They'll click on the link. Their people will take the assessment. We'll compile the results, and then I'll schedule a time to go over them with them.
Excellent. Okay,
Yep.
I'm going to share your email and your phone number then with everyone when I send out this recording as well.
Thank you.
But thank you so much. Appreciate it. So just a little plug if you enjoyed today. We have a lot of free webinars on our website. Just go to mibankers.com. There's an events tab across the top, and then you would drop down to online learning. So you'll see more of this. Hopefully we'll be able to welcome Jack back again as well. Always fun. Thanks for taking us back to the 80s. Just had a little flashback, but it was nice on a Thursday afternoon. So thanks. Appreciate it. And Anthony Cole Training, of course, for sponsoring today. So lots of great stuff.
Our pleasure.
That being said, everyone stay warm and have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you, Cindy. I saw the text. Thank you very much. It's been a lot of fun, everybody. Appreciate you. You're welcome, Sandy. God bless. Stay safe. You're welcome, Sandy. 2 Sandys out there. There we go. Thanks, everybody. Take care.